How many times have we heard that gesture drawing is a pivotal skill to build and continue honing as artists? Probably many, and for a lot of really great reasons. If you're someone like me and consider yourself a self taught artist, you probably didn't go through formal figure drawing or gesture drawing classes and skipped right into doing portraits, character splash art, or whatever it may be. Nothing against that, of course, but seeing as I was lacking this important skill, I wanted to challenge myself to see how much of this skill I could build and improve on with just 30 straight days of 1 hour gesture drawing. Now, before we jump into the juicy bit, quick note. Throughout this video, you may notice that where I did this challenge and where I am currently, I'm in two different places. The reason being is I recently revamped my room and desk setup, so if you're interested in seeing what went down, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video. But more importantly, if you find yourself wondering if you yourself need to improve your gesture drawing, I wanted to provide you guys with a little bit of context as to why I felt I was lacking these skills. The first was taking a very objective look at my characters and the character sheets and noticing that they were stiff. And when I look back on them after some time has passed, the novelty just kind of died off. The impression felt a little stale. It's as if dynamics and flow of energy in a character is their life force, and the more stiff a character feels, well, the shorter their appeal. And I started to feel a little of that in my own characters. Secondly, given my first point, I struggled to take my characters and breathe new energy into them. Stiff the first time, and stiff once again. At this point, I got frustrated, and I knew that I needed to grow as an artist if I were to take my characters to the next level. So, let the challenge begin. My first week with this challenge was a fun but rather difficult one. I hadn't warmed up to the general concept of gesture drawing, which is flow, the depiction of directional energy. If you look at my drawings, my figures were stiff and I was still constructing form. Luckily, as I continued to draw and watch other people do some gesture drawing online, I started to better understand what it was that I was doing and kind of a better sense of what I was supposed to do. I tackled the first week with the task of doing 2-minute gesture drawings. I thought this would give me ample amount of time to analyze and unlearn with each figure. I did this with the intent that eventually I would be able to do these gestures in just 30 seconds. But I'll expand more on that later. Well, actually, why don't we just take a closer look at what I did? As you can see, I started the first day of this challenge using a pencil, and I did this based purely out of familiarity, and I thought it would be the most forgiving. I found my references through lineofaction.com to start with, since that is what many of my artist friends were recommending. As I was doing these gestures, I added a little check mark, circle, or X to indicate whether or not I completed the gesture in time. Circle meaning close, but not quite. For my first day, I had a decent amount of check marks and X's, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the drawings. Now for day 2, I continued with the same exercise, same source for my references, and a somewhat similar technique. I tried to worry less about construction and contour and tried my best to capture the energy, but alas, I didn't do such a great job either. I could definitely tell from my drawings that I was still lacking the confidence to follow through with my strokes, and I wasn't very confident in my decision making. Will that change? Let's find out. Now, I don't want to bore you by talking through each of the 30 days, so starting at this point, I'll start speaking generally about my approach and the things that I'm learning along the way. So, for the remainder of the first week, I'm gradually building my confidence to the point where I graduate from the pencil and start using a pen. Honestly, not that much different, but a step in the right direction. I was still keeping to a 2-minute timer, but I do switch up where I'm finding my references halfway through the first week. I was getting really bored of the references coming off of line of action, given that I was still a noob and I needed my figures to be as clear as possible, but also have some diversity. Line of action was beginning to feel repetitive and a little bit hit or miss in terms of quality. I decided to purchase a few reference photos as well as an application called Gesture Drawing. What this allowed me to do was create custom time sessions using the photos I had just purchased. This was incredibly game changing, and I'd recommend anyone give it a try. I'll leave links to the photos I purchased as well as the app for anyone interested. Just note that they are affiliate links, so I do get a small kickback on purchases made using those links. So if you are thinking of making that purchase, do consider using the links below to help support the channel. Any and all support is appreciated. Anywho, having this tool allowed me to find reference images that were kind of tailored to my taste, and that made the drawings much more enjoyable. With this factor of fun and excitement, by the end of the first week, I was able to build enough of that rhythm and confidence to start using a brush pen. At the start of the second week, I wanted to further challenge myself and I started giving myself just 1 minute to complete the gesture. Given that I wanted to build up some confidence, first I returned to using the pencil. As confidence grew, I started to use the pen, then the brush pen. This is a pattern I adopted throughout the challenge to help ease me into the work I was doing. By doing this though, I did find that the tool I was using affected a bit of the quality and speed at which I was able to do these figures at. The way the brush pen tapered off definitely helped sell the flow of the figure a bit more, at least when the brush pen was used properly. Some days the ink would just spill all over the page or I would simply mess up. Another thing that I noticed is that I was getting better at arranging my figures on the page. I was able to play with size and be able to orient figures and fit more drawings onto the page. I think this created an aesthetic appeal and further increased my joy for the continued practice. Overall, I was really happy with the progress and results of week 2. Now, during week 3, I started to feel a bit demotivated. The session started to feel really long, and I started to feel unable to complete the full hour of drawing. This may have had something to do with a not too diverse set of reference images, or the fact that I had a vacation coming up. But I still pushed through the best I could. I started varying the time limit per figure for each session to see if that would ignite some spark. I'd try 30 seconds, a minute, and 2 minutes on down days. What I noticed was that on days where I did 2-minute gestures, each gesture felt a bit like a drag. And with 30 seconds, it was just slightly a bit too fast. So I found that a minute was more or less my sweet spot. I also found, and you may have noticed too, but I had a lot of difficulty with head placement and the representation of fingers, toes, and the face. I was always so focused on trying to capture the entire figure that I simplified these elements and left it at that. Not really the best approach, so I tried to spend bits of week 3 and 4 to try and remedy this. At certain points of week 4, I tried a different exercise where I would spend 5 minutes on a figure, then 1 minute on the same figure, and then again with the same figure, a 2-minute gesture drawing. I did this to try and really digest what I was drawing, seeing where I could simplify, and trying to find that middle ground between simplified and somewhat accurate. I did enjoy this exercise, and again, I'd recommend you try it. I think this exercise did help me address one other issue I had, which was drawing what I thought the pose was rather than what the pose actually was. There were simply times where I thought the leg would just go one way, and well, turns out it didn't. The first 5-minute iteration gave me the right amount of time to digest and take my time with the gesture. All in all, week 4 saw a decline in consistency and fulfillment in the challenge with each passing day. I wasn't able to complete the full hour, but still did my best to fill a page. I think a lot of this had to do with time away on vacation and not really ever being able to get back into the groove. Secondly, I always did my gestures in the morning before work, but I found during these weeks there were times when I would have to log into work early and I couldn't find the energy and opportunity during or after work to dedicate to practicing. So I'd usually skip those days. So if we circle back to what the challenge was, did I complete it? Short answer is no. 30 straight days of 1-hour gesture drawing, I was not able to do that. But did I fill the original intent of the challenge? I would say definitely. I do think that I was able to build a great deal of muscle memory and confidence when it comes to executing these gestural drawings. I learned new simplifications as well as reinforced my understanding of the human physique and different body types. That said, some issues still remain. There were definitely issues in proportion, speed, accuracy, and general lack of definition in areas such as the hands, feet, and face. However, I do think that part of this comes with mileage and building that hand-eye coordination, but also by slowing down a bit. I noticed that when I did these drawings, I was constantly looking up at the reference, back down to the paper and what I was drawing, then back up to the reference. This repetitive motion reminded me of my elementary school days when my teacher would ask us to, copy lines from the blackboard into our notebooks. I feel like gesture drawing is sort of similar to this school exercise. And, I think back and remember when I did this exercise in school, rather than copy down one word at a time, I would read several words in a sentence, then write that sentence down into my notebook, then repeat from where I left off. Those fractions of a second to look up and down and process tiny bits of information start to add up. Instead, I could be saving time and retaining more info if I just read a little more into the figure before putting it down on paper. I believe this would increase my speed, accuracy, proportions, and help in having more time and information to get those feet, faces, and hands in. It would also help me draw what is actually there and not what I think is there. So yeah, some food for thought. Slow down and process to get faster. And to add to that, I think my progress was most evident when I was practicing consistently, not taking any shortcuts and not making any excuses to slack. I feel like if I had just kept up with that, I probably would have seen more improvement. Once I started to slow down and slack off, it kind of just went downhill. So I really have to build the habit and practice into my routine. So there you have it. I know this video was a longer one, but I do hope that in my rambling and reflection, there are nuggets of gold that could help you along your journey. I do think that I will revisit this challenge in the future and hopefully do a better job with sticking to the schedule. But overall, again, I learned a lot and can definitely see improvement in my art because of it. So I'd recommend you give this a try on your own time with your own set of rules. Any of the resources I use for this challenge are linked in the description below, so feel free to check those out if you're interested. Now, if you like this video, please do me a favor and let me know by giving it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more content like this and following me on my art journey. If you're looking for a wholesome art community to join, do also check out our Discord community linked in the description as well. We hope to see you there. With all that out of the way, thank you again for visiting my video and my channel. And if you've made it this far, I appreciate you sticking till the end. And like always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Oh, come on. Oh, so close. That's okay. Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yes.